Good morning, and welcome to Redeemer Lutheran Church in Columbia, South Carolina, where we're part of the ELCA. I'm Pastor Gary Lodeholt. Perhaps you've never thought to ask why we have candles on our altars in church and what significance they have. Frankly, they don't really have much significance at all. Because they were being persecuted, the early Christians often had to gather for worship in secret and in out-of-the-way places. You may have heard that they worshipped in catacombs and other caves and places like that where they wouldn't be seen. They gathered in places that were dark, and they needed candles in order to see, and in particular in order to read Paul's letters and the Gospels. The candles we use are simply remnants of those candles. One candle is called the epistle candle, and they would read Paul's letters and other scriptures using the light from that candle. And then to emphasize the distinctiveness of the gospel, they would go to a different candle and read from there. That's called the gospel candle. And if you want to know which is which in your church, the side the pulpit is on is the side with the gospel candle. In the Gospel of John, Jesus said, "I am the light of the world." This week we are focusing on the 5 times in the Gospels of John when Jesus used "I am" sayings, comparing himself to things and aspects of life that invite us to think of Jesus in new ways and to understand his place in our lives. Those candles in the early church were used for light. What does it mean to have Jesus as the light of the world? The first thing you need to know is that we find this passage in John 8, and it seems to appear rather suddenly, not really related to what happened just before it. Just before this is a story where the religious leaders had caught a woman in adultery, and as they were about to stone her to death, Jesus said, "The one among you who is without sin may cast the first stone." Then, when that story concludes, another one picks up where Jesus appears to be in the temple itself, and he says to his disciples and the religious leaders around, "I am the light of the world." Many biblical scholars believe that Jesus said this during what was called the Feast of Tabernacles. This was something like a harvest festival, but the thing you need to know is that while this feast occurred, massive lampstands were lit in the temple, so bright that they lit all of Jerusalem. The blazing light was meant to recall the pillar of smoke and fire in the wilderness, leading God's people to the promised land. Most think that Jesus used the light that all could see as the basis for his statement about being the light of the world. With that backdrop, Jesus made his claim, pointing out that he himself was that pillar of fire, giving guidance to the people in the past. And more, he is the light of the Messiah who has come to lead the people to God anew. Jesus leads and guides us out of spiritual darkness. There's something more, too, especially with the word tabernacle, which was what the feast was called. The word tabernacle means place of dwelling. While they were moving around in the wilderness, the Ark of the Covenant was held in a series of tents they called a tabernacle, the place of God's dwelling with them in their midst. Here, Jesus is claiming that he is God dwelling with them now. John had referred to this earlier in his first chapter when he said, "The Word became flesh and dwelt among us." So, with those lights blazing in the temple, Jesus meant all this and more. Light does 2 things. It exposes and it reveals. Light exposes who we really are. Every blemish, every fault, every way we fail to be who God wants us to be is exposed, and there's no hiding it. But this light also reveals God's steadfast love for us. Jesus as light shows us the God who loves us so much that he died for us. Jesus as light illuminates God's relentless grace given in love. Jesus as light assures us that God is slow to anger and abounding in steadfast love. The blemishes are there to be seen, exposed, but they don't matter. The light shows us God's love greater than any blemish. The other interesting part of light is that it gives illumination and guides our way. Many of us have night lights in our homes to provide a low level of light if we have to get up in the night. We need light to find our way. That's the light Jesus provides as well. In the darkness of our world, amidst confusion and clamor, Jesus guides our choices and our living God's way. We can follow the light before us. Jesus said, "I am the light of the world." Lord, lead us out of darkness and into your light. Thanks for sharing these moments with me, and remember to let this day belong to God.